Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kim Andrew. I'm a pattern maker, a fashion educator, and a fashion designer. Now, in my previous video, we went over the contour guidelines simplified my way, and now I'm going to show you how you can apply those contour guidelines to your neckline variations. I'm going to start with a v-neck. Now, this v-neck is going to be one that would get to the center front bust, right? You know, those kind of, with v-necks, you can go as deep as the bust point line and you wouldn't have to worry about too much cleavage because it's just like a peak. Okay, so when you're working with a v-neck, because the neckline starts from the SMP, that's the shoulder neck point, down to the center front bust, you don't have to take any adjustment for that shoulder. So now remember, I showed you the mid shoulder contour line, right? That's 0.5 cm. Now when you're not cutting deeply into the neckline, like maybe from your shoulder neck point down to like 2 cm, you don't have to take that out. But because of the v-neck, because of the depth, most times when you make a v-neck, you realize there's like a little bit of gaping right along the neckline. Now what would happen is that you see that 2 cm that I have marked for the contour guide. Now that's what I'm going to be taking out, right? So anytime your neckline depth is going to either reach your center from bust, that's your bust point, or extend beyond that point, you need to take out that contouring. That's all this English that I've been speaking. That's what I'm trying to say. Anytime your neckline is going to reach the center from bust, you have to take out that contour guide, that excess, right? So what would happen is, because this contour excesses are basically like darts, we're going to pivot it. So you're going to manipulate your dart. You can move your dart into any place that you desire. You can either decide to make that a style preference, or you can move it to the straight bust, or you can move it to the waist dart, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to create a new slash line through the middle of my waist dart, open it, slash it to the bust point, and then I'm going to close that excess, right? See, it's already happening automatically. So I'm going to close that excess, and there is my contour. Now I've taken the excess from the neckline. That's just it. Nothing more, nothing less. Then I can just blend it and finish my neckline. Now after chewing and blending my neckline, I can go ahead and cut out, and I have the pattern for my neckline. Now still working with the V neckline. Let's say that I want to open up my neckline, right? Make about 2 cm opening. Just open up my neckline a little bit by 2 cm from the shoulder neck point. And then I also want to drop my neckline depth to about the under bust, right? Just to show a little bit more skin. So I'm going to mark that position, and then I will connect from the new neckline opening down to my new neckline depth. I'm going to use a curve because with v-necks you don't actually want to use a straight line because on the body, right? So you can have a curve there. Now because I've cut into my neckline, it's no more starting from the shoulder neck point. I'm going to mark my mid shoulder contour, that's the 0.5 cm, and then I will connect to the SMP like this. Now this excess now becomes what I would take off from my neckline, right? That's going to be what I'll take off from the shoulder, sorry. So I would fold over the dart, fold it, like fold my shoulder dart, and then nicely blend my new shoulder line. Now, having cut out my shoulder excess, now I have my pattern. I can also decide to move my shoulder dart either to the armhole, to the straight bust, or even to the waist and just create one dart. Whichever is your desire, you can do that. Or you can even just leave the shoulder dart as is where it is without having to move it. And there you have it, your V neckline with the contour adjustment. Now, as earlier stated, my armhole on this block is one that accommodates a sleeve, but let's say you want to make it sleeveless. So you're going to have to apply the contour guide for the armhole. So mark about 1/3 of the armhole, right? And then we'll measure our 1.5 cm, which is a standard. Again, this can differ depending on bust volume, right? So the 1.5 is what I'm going to be taking out. Again, this is a dart, so I'm going to move that dart excess to somewhere else. So you know, situations where you want a princess seam that starts from the armhole, you can just leave that as is. But I don't want a princess seam. I just want a clean finish for my armhole. So I'm going to move that excess to my waist, creating a bigger dart at my waist. Of course, you're going to tape it down, add some paper so that you can true and blend the line, because now your lines are not the same length. So add paper under the armhole and then true and blend it, and then you have a nice fitted armhole. So you can go ahead and decide to test this pattern out, but this will give you a lovely finish by the time you're done. Now let's work on one of my favorite necklines, the Queen Anne neckline. So starting off, I've already drawn my bust radius on my pattern before moving ahead. I always do this before I start working on any pattern, right? So my bust radius has been drawn. So first, I'm going to draw out my neckline. So I've marked the depth. I'm going to mark how wide I'm going to cut into the pattern to create the width of my neckline. You know what a Queen Anne neckline is, right? Yes, this is a perfect example of what a Queen Anne neckline is. So for this example, I'm marking up 2 cm from my bust point as the depth of my neckline, and then I'm going to mark how wide I want my neckline to open up from the SNP, because you know that the Queen Anne sits really close to the shoulder neck point, and then it still goes wide towards the side before coming back either into a sweetheart or a straight, whatever it is that you want the shape to be. It doesn't have to be the same thing. It can even be like a sweetheart with a yoke type of fitting, right? I'm first going to fold my dart this way because I want to get a nice smooth line. I don't need to fold your dart because, again, know that we're going to come and make adjustment by the time we contour. So, but I'm just folding this so that I can get a nice smooth continuous line for my Queen Anne. So I'm going to draw that, connect that point. I think it's about 4 cm. This position here, I think it's about 4 cm. So it's from that 4 cm I'm going to connect to the depth of my neckline, and then that same 4 cm I would connect to the shoulder neck points. So this entire region is what I'm going to be cutting out, right? So my neckline cuts into my body, meaning that I'm going to have to deal with some sort of excess, especially around the chest area, and the part where the arm is, like that place, is going to have excess, as well as the chest area. So I'm going to apply my contour, my mid shoulder bust. I'm going to apply that to get my contour in. And also, if this is going to be a sleeveless garment, I would have to also apply my armhole contouring. So now again, the mid shoulder bust is a total of 2 cm as a standard for the excess that we need to take out. Now this measurement happens on the bust radius, not on the neckline. It happens on this circle here, and it happens on the circle, and it always is marked from either side of your dart leg. Now for the center front, because my neckline depth doesn't reach the center front, I'm not going to have to deal with that. The moment you do that, you're going to start causing some tension in your chest, but I don't have to do that. So what I would do is to mark my 1.5 cm on either side of my dart legs on the circle. Again, this measurement happens on the circle. So I'm using dashed lines to mark the contour guide because it is a guide, right? This is not the final measurement I'm going to be taking out. So this is a guide. So wherever my contour guide, that's my dash lines, wherever it intersects with my neckline, that is what I'm taking out. So this position here, right? This is what I'm going to be taking out, not the 1.5 that is on the bust radius, unless my neckline happens to be going over the bust radius. But if it's not, this is the amount of the excess I need to take out to get my nice fit for my neckline. Nothing more, nothing less. It can be more if maybe you do it on the person's body and you realize, oh, this person is busty, they need more, right? Because the bustier you are, the more you might need to take out. But if you're not that busty, if you're like a B cup like me, this should work fine. Even if you're busty, this should also work fine. Now my excess is what I'm going to be connecting back to my shoulder to create my new dart lines. Again, the excess that we have is always converted to dart lines. So I'm going to draw my lines from the neckline, right? Where the neckline and the guide intersect. That's the excess I'm taking out. I'm going to connect that back to the bust point from the lower neckline. So connect that to the bust point. And then for the upper neckline, that's the part that acts almost like a yoke, I would also connect that back to the peak of the shoulder, or to the shoulder tip. Sorry, not the shoulder tip, to the top of my shoulder darts. Now, anytime you have to address contour excess, you're going to have to true and blend your lines, because the moment you create these new lines, you're going to have steps. So I'm going to cut into my pattern so that I'll have some space, right? Because I can fold the dart, like I will fold it and show you what the disparity would be like, right? But the best thing would be to cut. I think I'm going to cut right now, right? So just cut through, just cut just enough that you can give yourself some space to work with. Don't cut too much, because you need to true and blend. You will need some of this paper hanging around. So fold your new dart lines, and then you're going to true and blend your neckline. Use sticky tape to hold it down, because as of this moment, this dart has been moved out of the way. It's no more going to be sewn as a dart. It's now going to be a clean finish pattern. So you can now true and blend your neckline. Then for the bust, I'm going to open up my waist through the middle, my waist dart, and then I would fold my new dart line and through and blend, and also move the dart if I so desire. You can decide to make it a princess seam, that also works. You can make it a princess seam, or you can just make it one piece. Now to finish up my pattern, I'm just going to smoothen out my shoulder because I noticed that it's like a peak happening where I closed my dart. So I'm just going to smoothen my shoulder, draw out the line straight and proper, then trim it off. And there you have your Queen Anne neckline. Now, as I said, you can decide to make this a princess seam. It's not really compulsory that it shouldn't have a seam. You can make it a princess seam. I like seeing princess seams in this kind of necklines anyway. You can also take off that shoulder part and make it like a yoke. That would also be nice. So next is my underbust suppression. Now, for your underbust suppression, you can decide to use the 2 cm total for the standard. That's 1 cm on either side of the dart legs, or you can use the calculation meant for your underbust suppression. Now, how do you calculate for your underbust suppression? The first thing you need is your underbust circumference, also known as your empire circumference. So you would take your actual empire circumference, divide it by 4, like 4, whatever 4 you have, right? If it's 68 cm, 72 cm, divide it by 4. Then after dividing it by 4, you're going to use that quarter and compare it to what you have on the paper, which is also your block. So you compare that. Whatever the difference is, you will now divide that by 2 and measure it and mark it on either side of the dart leg. So that's how you can get your own personalized underbust suppression. Now I'm creating a curve from the bust point down to the underbust suppression. For the side that is towards the side seam, you're going to have a deeper curve than the side that is towards the center front. Always make sure to blend any sharp corners in your pattern, especially because you're dealing with a human body. Now I'm cutting my pattern so that I can show you a clean and finished pattern. But as always, know that you need to add your sewing allowances before you go to your fabric. Yes, I know some people are like, but you can add sewing allowances on your fabric. Take it from me, add your sewing allowances on the paper before you go to the fabric. Just save yourself the hassle, honestly. Just save yourself the stress. Now my pattern is ready. So this is Queen Anne neckline with the contour guides applied. Now remember, you can use these contour guides for a sweetheart neckline, a square neckline, a U neckline, whatever neckline you want to use. Now for my back, I'm going to start with taking out my shoulder dart. Now you can decide to pivot your shoulder dart. You can create a princess seam from the armhole. You can create a princess seam from the shoulder. You can actually pivot your darts from the shoulder to the armhole using the waist dart peak as your pivot point. But I'm just going to take this out because it's the back and I can actually do that. So what you're going to do is whatever the total excess of your dart is, mine is 1.5. I'm going to mark it from the edge of my shoulder, so shoulder tip, mark it into the shoulder, and then redraw my armhole. That's basically what I'm going to do, and that just takes out my dart. Like me, you can decide to just cut it off so that I can move on with other things, or you can leave it. I don't know why you leave it. Maybe there are other reasons that you might leave it, but you can just cut it off and then focus on other things. Well, I mean, if you are going to add sewing allowances later, yeah, maybe you just leave it off and just clean it. You can clean it if you're using a pencil. Next, I'm marking the width of my neckline. So how wide is my neckline going to be away from the original shoulder neck point? I think here I used about 5 cm, right? That's how wide my neckline is. And then the depth, I'm just using my underarm line, like that's this line basically. So I'm just going to use that. I'm just going to square, I'm making a square neckline. So I'll just square it from the underarm line straight to my 5 cm opening of my neckline. Next, I'm moving in for my back shaping. So again, at my neckline, I'm marking 1 cm in from the center back, and then at the waistline 1.5 cm in, and then I'm just going to connect the 1 cm and the 1.5 with a straight line. Now this line becomes my new center back line. Just keep that in mind. This now becomes my new center back line. Now because I've cut into my neckline, I'm going to have to do my mid shoulder. So this neckline width actually falls at the middle of my shoulder. So I'm going to mark down 0.5 cm and then connect that to my shoulder tip. That just takes out the little bit of excess that's going to happen at the shoulder. The next is my dart extension. So my middle dart leg, I'm going to extend it all the way to my back width line and then just connect that back to the dart legs at the waist. This just makes my dart longer and it takes out some excess at the neckline as well, if you notice. So these excesses is what my dart will now take off from my center back and gives me a better fit so that my neckline does not gape. So you can go ahead, fold your dart over so you can true and blend your neckline. Make sure you get a nice straight line, because if you look at it, it's looking like it's going up and then straight. So you can now adjust the neckline and get a proper straight line. You can run the dart over with your tracing wheel so you can get the proper placement of your dart as well. Now don't forget your grain line. Please do not forget your grain line, because the new center back line is not a straight line. So I'm going to use my former back line to get my parallel line, which is the line that will be best for my grain line. Then I can now draw that on my pattern always draw your grain line. This helps in so many ways. I think I have to drop a video that just shows you how you can use the grain line against your fabric. So always draw your grain line, then you can now go ahead and cut your pattern. Remember to add your allowances, even though I'm doing this because it's a video, but remember to add your allowances always. Now for this back, in this situation, you can choose to close up your dart, right, like this, and just have a dartless back pattern, or you can choose to sew up your dart, whichever you desire, that's fine. You can also decide to turn the dart into a princess seam. Now if you're going to do that, make sure you mark another grain line on this side back piece, so that you would have a matching grain line on each of your pieces. So this is it, a few ways you can apply your contour guides to your necklines to get a better fit. I absolutely hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned a lot. I look forward to seeing your comments. I look forward to seeing you try out this process and letting me know how the fit works. Whatever issues you encounter, please let me know. I would love to get your feedback. Super happy to get feedback from you. You have no idea how happy it makes me. But yeah, this is it. Application of contour guidelines, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.